everybody, and welcome to my review of Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Harrison Ford. And I have my dad's copy of the DVD of Blade Runner. So, Blade Runner, with the release of the sequel, Blade Runner 2049, dawning very soon, I thought it would be interesting to actually review the first one, as I've never actually seen it before, and I really do admire Harrison Ford as an actor and Ridley Scott as a director, so I thought, it's worthy to check out, and also for the story purposes, to understand the story before I see the second one would be beneficial. So with that in mind, let's dive in to Blade Runner. Okay, so the plot is, and I'm just going to read off the IMDb page just to keep things short and snappy. A Blade Runner must pursue and try to terminate 4 replicants who stole a ship in space and have returned to Earth to find their creator. That's it. That's the basic plot of Blade Runner. So, Blade Runner. As I understand, this movie tends to get a fairly mixed response. And I understand that, I the version of this movie that I watched was the final cut, so I will be reviewing the final cut. And obviously I've never seen the original cut, so I can't say what's been added in. But in terms of this film, I unfortunately am in the camp that I'm not keen on it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. I just could not get into this movie. I thought it was very dull. Very dull. I think the biggest problem with Blade Runner is the pacing. It is way too slow. The first 2 acts are just too slow. I'm sorry. I don't mind slow movies, as long as there's, enough interesting things going on in the plot that warrant a slow pace. For me, I can see what they're trying to do, the whole idea of this. It's a very strange thing for me to say, but this feels like a sci-fi noir movie, kind of a blend of those two genres, which is kind of weird to say that, because it's obviously not black and white, but it could almost be that, and I think it's a very interesting style, but it's boring. Well, it's just a boring movie, and I'm sorry, I can't lie to you. I didn't find it particularly interesting, and I do apologise. I have a bit of a cold, so I'm trying to power through this without suffering so much. The movie's basically a drag. From beginning, the first 2 acts are just kind of slow. Not much is going on. The main character, the main protagonist, Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford. He's like a detective, policeman sort of person, and he's trying to uncover this mystery as to who stole the ship. And obviously, as an audience, there's no mystery in this really, because we've seen them do it. So there's a mystery element to this movie that is just completely pointless. It fails because we know who's stolen the ship, and I don't care about his quest to find out who's done it. I don't care about anything in this movie, really. I thought the plot was kind of nothing. It's not a bad plot, but it's nothing. This movie is nothing. It's a nothing movie. The best thing I could say about Blade Runner is that it's visually stunning. Yeah, it's a visual feast. And the lighting, the cinematography, the technical aspects of this movie are perfect. I know that the cut has been meddled with to actually warrant an update in the effects. Of course, when the movie came out originally, excuse me, it wasn't received too well. It was received okay. People thought it was alright, and it was kind of, yeah. But I think over time, since the final cut has come out, people have actually grown to appreciate this movie a lot more. Excuse me. I just don't think the characters are all that memorable, other than Harrison Ford, of course, who, well, tries. Harrison Ford It's not his best performance in the world, but I think he does a pretty good job. I don't really care for the romance he has. I don't care for the other characters. The villains are a joke. I don't give a fuck. Why was the character of Pris in the movie? It didn't really make sense to me. I found the plot that they tried to overcomplicate things too much. I'm like, just if you have a simple premise, they add in all these stupid characters like for the villains, and like there's this scene between Pris and JF Sebastian, who's this construction worker, and the fact that he kind of lures her in, and stuff, and they kind of meet. It's like, I just don't think the character development is very good, and I'm sorry, I can't lie to you. Other than Harrison Ford's character, the rest of them are just nothing. I mean, Rachel, the love interest, is okay, I guess. I mean, I kind of find her race interesting. The fact that she's of a race. I mean, she kind of reminds me of a Vulcan from Star Trek. The fact that she's she doesn't always show her emotions. She doesn't always express her emotions, and when Rick kind of forces himself on her and he tries to make her fall in love with him, that's interesting. I mean, there's not much action in the movie, and when there is action, it's good. I just found that the movie never really gripped me with that tension. I felt like there was a lack of tension, and ultimately, it's a drag. It's a drag to watch. Which slightly worries me for the sequel, because the sequel is actually 2 hours 43 minutes, so it's actually even longer than this movie. So, I mean, this one's about 2 hours, which is good enough. I thought the climax was kind of entertaining, but this movie's really weird. Like, tonally, this world that Ridley Scott's created, I just don't get it. Like, what? It's just weird. Like, the fact that you have this futuristic dystopia, which, I mean, I like that, but the people in the world are just weird. There's just something really weird about them. And then when we get to the climax, when Harrison Ford is in, I guess you could say, this haunted house of sorts, he's taking on Roy, who's the villain. Roy's a joke. He's a terrible villain. I'm sorry. He's not intimidating, and he gets really weird at the end when he's going, oh, like when he doesn't do that, when he's trying to creep Rick out, and it's weird. I mean, it's kind of brutal when he kind of breaks Rick's hand in a way, and his moment at the end was kind of. It's parts of this story are just confusing to me. I've only seen the movie once, so I may need to watch it again to fully understand it. But I mean, it's visually lovely. I just think there are some unnecessary scenes here. There's a lot of filler as well. I think this movie should have really been 90 minutes long at the most. It should have been 90 minutes. I mean, Harrison Ford tries, and what's with that music score? The music score is, at one time it's good, and then it doesn't feel like, it feels like two scores in one. It feels like two separate film scores in one. It feels like one score, you have the normal music, like the techno music, and then the next you have this weird kind of vocal chorus thing, like when this woman is going, oh, it's like, what the fuck, this is so strange. I mean, I'm okay with weird films, but for me there are a lot of things in this movie that just didn't make sense, and I'm still confused having just watched it. I'm still like, what the fuck was that? What was that all about? And at the end of the day, Blade Runner was a disappointment. I'm sorry. I mean, I've heard so much about this movie. Some people love it. Some people don't like it. Some people think it's all like it gets such a mixed response. You'd be hard pressed to find a majority group that think that have the same opinion. Everybody seems to think differently about this movie. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's awful. I think the storytelling is a bit sloppy and the character development is sloppy. It's a technical masterpiece. Ridley Scott's direction is, well, okay, I guess. I mean, the technical direction is great, but the direction of the script and the story is where the movie really falters. Let's put it this way. Blade Runner is style over substance, and that really does affect it. But you know, what can I say? So yeah, kind of strange, kind of weird, but yeah. I would definitely say, if you haven't watched it, do check it out if you want to see the sequel, because the sequel looks interesting. I would say Blade Runner 2049, that looks a bit more action-driven to me than this one does. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to fare with that one. I'm not really looking forward to it. I'll go and watch it, but I'm not really excited for it. I mean, I know Ridley Scott isn't directing it as well, so that's another thing. I just think that I just can't get my head around the bizarreness of the world that they live in, and just the weirdness of the tone. And I mean, it gets, you know, dark and brutal in certain scenes, which is good. I mean, but there's no tension. It drags, and I wasn't interested in the story or the characters, and you know, I'm sorry, I have to say that I only thought this movie was okay. And I mean, if I get hate comments, I get hate comments. If you disagree with me, that's fine. I'm sorry, but just respect my opinion. Be nice in the comments, and I will be nice to you. So, I'm gonna rate Blade Runner 5 out of 10. Yeah, I was hoping to rate it a bit higher than that, but oh well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, I'm wearing a shirt with the words "License to Film Productions" on it. This is actually the name of my production company. It's not like trademarked or anything. It's just like, for college, I had to think of a production company name, and I chose that. And I've been making projects with that. I don't actually use it for work at the moment. I may do at some point, I don't know, but I made a t-shirt, because I had this, screening for, my college, where I screened my final film for graduation, and I wore this t-shirt that day just to promote myself. I do have the channel on YouTube. It's another channel. I have 3 channels now. So this channel, which is called License to Film Productions, has all my college work on it, some of the films. I've made quite a selection of them. I'm in the process of making a James Bond trilogy. I've made the first 2, one called Family Bonding and Christmas Bonding. They're loosely based off the Bond life sketches, not completely. And I'm making the 3rd one, which is called 50 Slices of Bonding. Yeah. I've also made an animation called Food Glorious Food. I made another film, The Truth Inside, which is my graduation film. I've made various other little bits and pieces. I won't go into any more detail, but if you want to check that out, please do check that out. I'll try and leave a link to the description below of the channel. I'd love to get your guys' opinions and thoughts on my work and what you think of it. I'm actually in a lot of my work as well as an actor. I'm acting in a lot of my work. So, yes, that's pretty much all I have to say about Blade Runner. So yeah, kind of disappointed, but oh well, let's hope the sequel fares better. So I will be reviewing Blade Runner 2049. So until then, thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.